Ever had a neighbor from hell? When Karen drilled holes into my wall to steal my Wi-Fi, the police wouldn't help. So I built something special, a signal jammer that played ear-splitting goat noises whenever she connected. Revenge never sounded so sweet, or so much like, Brea. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more Karen stories. Living in apartment 302 had been peaceful until Karen moved in next door 3 months ago. I'm Alex, a 28-year-old software developer who works from home most days. I value my privacy, my quiet space, and especially my high-speed internet connection. Little did I know that all three would soon be under attack. It started on a Monday morning in July. The summer heat was already becoming unbearable by 9 a.m., and I had an important video meeting with clients at 10. I was preparing my notes when I heard it, a persistent drilling sound coming from the wall that separated my apartment from Karen's. At first I didn't think much of it. New neighbors often hang pictures or install shelves. But this drilling continued for nearly 2 hours, moving to different spots along our shared wall. The noise was distracting, but I had deadlines to meet, so I put on my noise-canceling headphones and focused on my work. My meeting went well despite the background noise that occasionally broke through. Afterward, I decided to check the wall, curious about what Karen could possibly be installing that required so much drilling. When I examined the living room wall, I noticed several small holes, each about the diameter of a pencil, arranged in a pattern that made no sense for hanging pictures. I knocked on Karen's door, waiting patiently as I heard footsteps approaching from inside. The door swung open and there stood Karen, mid-40s with a blonde bob haircut and wearing an expensive-looking yoga outfit despite no evidence she ever actually exercised. She had that permanent look of dissatisfaction that seemed to be her default expression. "Yes?" she asked, not even attempting to sound friendly. "Hi, I'm Alex from next door. I noticed some drilling earlier and found these small holes in our shared wall. I was wondering what kind of project you're working on." Karen's face transformed instantly into a wide, fake smile. "Oh, just some home improvements. Nothing to worry about. The super said it was fine as long as I patch everything before moving out." Something felt off about her explanation, but I had no reason to push further. "Okay, just checking. Have a good day." "You too, neighbor," she replied with exaggerated cheerfulness before quickly closing the door. The next morning, I logged into my work system and immediately noticed something was wrong. My internet connection, normally lightning fast with the premium package I paid extra for, was crawling at an agonizing pace. Files that usually took seconds to upload were taking minutes. My video calls kept freezing and dropping. After restarting my router and computer with no improvement, I called my internet service provider. "Let me check your connection," the technician said after I explained the problem. After a few minutes of typing, he continued, "That's strange. Your bandwidth usage is extremely high, much higher than what your normal usage patterns show. It's as if multiple people are streaming 4K videos simultaneously on your network." "That's impossible," I replied. "I live alone and my Wi-Fi has a strong password. Could someone be hacking my connection?" "It's possible, but unlikely with our security measures. Let me send you instructions to check what devices are connected to your network right now." Following his guidance, I ran a network scan and was shocked to discover 5 unknown devices connected to my Wi-Fi. There were 2 smartphones, a laptop, a smart TV, and a tablet, none of which belonged to me. "Someone is definitely using your connection without authorization," the technician confirmed. "I recommend immediately changing your password and enabling MAC address filtering." I followed his advice but remained puzzled. How had someone cracked my complex password? I had used a random string of letters, numbers, and symbols that would be nearly impossible to guess. My curiosity and frustration led me to invest in a professional Wi-Fi analyzer tool. It arrived the next day and I immediately began investigating. The tool allowed me to see the strength and direction of my Wi-Fi signal throughout my apartment. What I discovered left me speechless. The signal was strongest near the holes in my living room wall, the very holes Karen had drilled. Moving the analyzer closer to one of these holes, I detected what appeared to be a directional antenna hidden inside the wall cavity. The pieces suddenly clicked together. Karen hadn't been doing home improvements. She had drilled into our shared wall and installed a specialized Wi-Fi antenna that could capture and amplify my signal, allowing her to bypass my password protection entirely. It was a sophisticated setup that required technical knowledge and specialized equipment. I felt violated. This wasn't just stealing internet, she had physically damaged my apartment to steal from me. With evidence in hand, I marched to Karen's door and knocked firmly. This time when she answered, I didn't bother with pleasantries. I know what you did, I said coldly. You installed an antenna in our wall to steal my internet. Karen's fake smile disappeared, replaced by a dismissive smirk. So what if I did? Internet is ridiculously expensive these days. Why should I pay $80 a month when yours works just fine? Her brazen admission stunned me. Because it's stealing. And you drilled holes in my wall without permission. She leaned against her doorframe, examining her manicured nails. The wall is technically building property, not yours. And stealing Wi-Fi isn't exactly a felony. The landlord won't do anything because there's no damage to the building structure itself, just cosmetic holes that can be patched. We'll see about that, I threatened before storming off to call our landlord. Unfortunately, Karen was right. Mr. Peterson, our landlord, considered it a personal dispute between tenants and refused to get involved beyond suggesting I work it out like adults. The police were equally unhelpful, explaining that Wi-Fi theft wasn't a priority crime and the damage to my wall was minimal in monetary terms. I spent that evening pacing my apartment, feeling helpless and increasingly angry. Karen had found a perfect loophole, causing damage just small enough to avoid legal consequences while stealing a service I paid good money for. The injustice of it burned in my chest. Then, while looking at my old college textbooks for comfort, I'm a bit of a nerd, I remembered something important. Before becoming a software developer, I had studied electronic engineering. I had the knowledge to fight back. I spent the next 5 days planning and building. I ordered parts online with expedited shipping. A Raspberry Pi microcomputer, specialized antennas, speakers, and various electronic components. I called in sick to work for 2 days to focus entirely on my project. What emerged was beautiful in its elegant simplicity, a customized signal jammer with a twist. My device could detect when specific devices, Karen's devices, attempted to connect to my network. When they did, it would not only block their connection but also activate hidden speakers I would install near our shared wall. These speakers would play a very special sound at very specific intervals. On Friday night, after Karen had left for what I assumed was her weekly happy hour based on the pattern I'd observed, I carefully installed my device in the wall cavity near where her antenna was hidden. I connected it to a power source, tested it once, and waited. The next morning at exactly 7:02 a.m., my phone alerted me that Karen's devices were attempting to connect to my network. My jammer activated immediately, blocking her connection. Then, right on cue, the speakers came to life. Baya, Baya, Mia. The goat noises I had chosen were not just any goat sounds. They were specifically the most annoying, high-pitched goat screams I could find on the internet, amplified to 85 decibels. Loud enough to be extremely disruptive but not technically loud enough to violate noise ordinances. The first round played for exactly 2 minutes before stopping. Through the wall, I heard a confused, "What the hell?" followed by the sound of furniture moving. The beauty of my system was in its programming. It would remain silent until Karen's devices tried again to connect to my Wi-Fi, which they inevitably would when her streaming or browsing was suddenly cut off. Each time she tried, the goat chorus would begin anew, playing for exactly 2 minutes before stopping. Throughout Saturday, I counted 17 separate goat serenades. By evening, I could hear Karen pacing her apartment, occasionally shouting in frustration. By Sunday morning, the attempts to connect had decreased, but each one was still met with faithful goat cries. At 2:37 p.m. on Sunday, a thunderous pounding shook my door. I opened it to find Karen, her normally perfect hair disheveled, dark circles under her bloodshot eyes, still wearing what appeared to be the same clothes from yesterday. "Make it stop," she shouted, her voice hoarse. "Those horrible goat sounds are driving me crazy. I haven't slept in 2 days." I feigned confusion. "Goat sounds? I haven't heard anything. Maybe there's a farm animal loose in the building? You should call animal control." "Don't play dumb with me," she snarled. "I know it's your doing. Every time I try to use the internet, those demonic goats start screaming. It's psychological torture." "That's a strange coincidence," I said innocently. "Especially considering I never gave you permission to use my internet in the first place." "I'll call the police," she threatened, her eye twitching slightly. I smiled calmly. "Go ahead. And I'll show them how you drilled holes in my wall to steal my internet. I have all the evidence now, including recordings of you admitting it. I'm sure they'd be very interested in the specialized equipment you've installed. That moves this from simple Wi-Fi theft to criminal property damage and electronic tampering, much more serious charges." Karen's face drained of color. The realization that she was caught with no way out slowly dawned on her. "What do you want?" she asked after a long, defeated silence. "3 things," I replied calmly, holding up my fingers to count. First, you will remove your antenna and repair all damage to my wall professionally, not just patch it up yourself. Second, you will reimburse me $200 for the internet you've stolen over the past month. And third, you will apologize sincerely. $200? That's ridiculous, she protested weakly. Just then, her phone made a notification sound, and immediately the hallway filled with "Baria. Mia." Fine, she shouted over the goat chorus. I'll do it. Just make them stop. By that evening, Karen had hired an emergency handyman who removed her antenna setup and properly repaired my wall. She handed me $200 in cash with trembling hands and muttered a barely audible "sorry" before retreating to her apartment. The following week, I noticed a van from the local internet provider parked outside our building. Karen had finally gotten her own connection. Peace returned to apartment 302, and my internet speed was gloriously fast once again. Karen and I established an unspoken agreement to avoid each other in the hallways and common areas. On the rare occasions we did cross paths, I would quietly whisper "bah," causing her to visibly flinch and walk faster in the opposite direction. Word of our conflict somehow spread throughout the building, likely through the handyman Karen had hired. Neighbors who had previously ignored me began nodding respectfully when we passed. Someone even left a small toy goat in front of my door with a note saying, "Thanks for standing up to her. She's been a nightmare to everyone." It turned out Karen had been making enemies throughout the building with her entitled attitude and complaints. My revenge had become something of a legend. The time the quiet tech guy in 302 defeated the nightmare neighbor with nothing but goat noises. 6 months later, Karen moved out without saying goodbye to anyone. I can't say I miss her, but I do sometimes miss the special kind of satisfaction that came from hearing those goat noises echo through the walls, delivering justice one brea at a time. Sometimes when life gives you difficult neighbors, the best solution isn't to get angry, it's to get creative. And sometimes sweet revenge sounds exactly like a goat.